last summer, the group Just Stop Oil went around blocking major roads, including the M25, to try and make a point about climate change. Day after day, motorists were stuck for hours sometimes as protesters climbed bridges and lay down in roads. 45 people in all climbed gantries over motorways, many of whom had been sent to prison. Today, a judge has ruled that for a number of those protesters, their sentences were too long and should be reduced. Among them, the founder of Just Stop Oil, Roger Hallam, who was originally jailed for 5 years for agreeing to disrupt traffic by having protesters climb onto gantries over the M25. His sentence has now been reduced by a year to 4. There are 5 other Just Stop Oil activists who have also had their sentences reduced. The reason for the reduction was outlined by the judge, who said the original sentences had not taken into account their conscientious motivation when they had their culpability assessed, which is a formal part of the sentencing calculation. This is Baroness Sue Carr. You may remember her from the other week, the Lady Chief Justice. Some attention, she says, must be paid to the conscientious motivation, although much less than would have been the case had the offending been less disproportionate. In spite of those reductions, activists have condemned this outcome. In one case, Just Stop Oil said the courts had been captured lock, stock and barrel by the powerful and the ultra-wealthy, adding, these judges would be sending those who hid Anne Frank to the cattle trucks while hiding behind the rule of law, end quote. Jill Tavner joins us, a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Why do you think these judges, this judge, are akin to Nazis?
I don't know whether you remember just a few weeks ago, Lukashenko, the leader of Belarus, warning, and a really chilling warning to the BBC's Steve Rosenberg. He said, prison is for people who open their mouths too wide. And that's why our people are in prison, because we're telling the truth. And there are people out there with vested interests and powers, the powerful and the wealthy, who don't want the truth to be heard because all of their interest is in things not changing.
Of course, you didn't just open your mouths, or these people didn't just open their mouths. They conspired to shut down large sections of the M25 motorway, and to a large extent did shut down sections of the. So they didn't just open their mouths; they broke the law.
Listen, we're looking at the sentencing at the moment, yeah, and these sentences, these disproportionate sentences, were brought in after the Lord Walmley report. Now, Lord Walmley was sort of flaunted as an independent advisor to the government, and yet he had interests in the oil industry. He's a paid lobbyist for the oil industry and the arms industry, and has since been sacked. And this sort of spree on hefty sentencing has continued. Now, typically,
just to interrupt you there, Joe. Do you think 4 years is still hefty? It's been reduced by a year, but for Roger Hallam, do you think 4 years is still too long?
I do. I mean, the judge today, Baroness Carr, said that the sentences have been manifestly excessive, which means far too big. And we had appeals going for 16, and she just tinkered around the edges of a couple of them, and ultimately kept the fact that the law at the moment is protecting the wealthy who cower pathetically behind this shield that they've created of their own power, whereas the law is supposed to be the shield for the ordinary people in speaking out for ourselves.
Yes.
It's our fundamental right.
So there are lots of ordinary people who were stuck in their cars on the M25 whilst your colleagues were blocking their path and impeding their path and conspiring to do more than just that.
We weren't conspiring to do more than block anyone's path. That is.
You were conspiring to block the entire M25. That's one of the reasons why the sentences were so strong, because the conspiracy the conspiracy to block the motorway was so vast that it would have had, I think, in the judge's original sentencing, would have had huge implications for the safety of those same ordinary people that you wish to protect.
If we're talking about conspiracy, the whole sort of system now, our democracy is broken, our justice is broken. It's been sort of held by the wealthy. We know that so many policies are going in the way of perpetuating the destruction of our planet, of all we know and love. And we've done many a quiet thing. I was with 70,000 people in, Parliament Square, doing a very peaceful protest. All our things are peaceful, but, non-disruptive. It was called The Big One. It hardly got on telly. And we're just trying to shout out the truth. And it's in the Human Rights Act, it's people's right to have easy access to the truth. And they're not getting this. We're getting all the denial, all the rubbish, all the things.
Where in this sentencing has a judge tried to deny man-made climate change?
They're not allowed to use it as a defence. So the judge said, that people's conscientious motivation should be taken into account, and yet those people whose sentences have just been reduced weren't allowed to mention it in court. And similarly, I can't talk about cases going on now, but it's a frequent event.
The conscientious motivation has to be taken into account for mitigating sentence. But would have been the case, although much less, this is Baroness Sukar, although much less than would have been the case had the offending been less disproportionate. So because...
I think it depends on proportion. Look, we're heading now for 3 degrees C above pre-industrial levels, OK? I can't remember which committee it is, possibly the Climate Change Committee, I might be wrong, because I'm in work, I haven't got my notes, but said that could lead to 4 billion deaths by 2070. That's half the world's population. A fall in GDP, if you want to talk money, of 50%, apparently. So I think none of us want to cause disruption, and none of us intend to...
You do want to cause... you do want to cause disruption.
We don't.
You do.
This
is what you went out to do, to cause disruption.
You're telling us what our motives are.
Yes, your motivation in this case was to cause disruption by blocking the M25.
I can speak for us. It isn't. It's to try to get the truth out there. And if we had a government that was telling the truth to people, and if they didn't keep putting climate deniers up there, who's
a climate denier in the current government?
When people know the truth about anything, really, we make sensible decisions. I'm not talking about me, just uphill. Ordinary people, all of us, we make sensible decisions when we know the truth. And if we're not told the truth, we'll make silly decisions, as it might be fair to say has happened in America. We need to hear the truth. And if the truth isn't being told, how do you get it out there? How do ordinary people like you and me, well, you've got a platform, but how do we get the truth out there? But really urgent action is needed on the climate. And look, if ordinary people like us want to reclaim that truth, want to have the power to say it, and want to reclaim our parliament, and want to sort of say the courts are meant to work for us, the best power we've got is our collective action and our voice. So we're inviting people to join us in Parliament Square in April to come together and say, hang on a minute, this government is supposed to protect us. It is not supposed to protect vested, powerful interests, as it's doing at the moment.
Why did a spokesperson, I don't know whether it's you, but it's a Just Stop Oil statement, why did you invoke Anne Frank in describing this sentencing? These judges would be sending those who hid Anne Frank to the cattle trucks while hiding behind the rule of law.
Sorry, I haven't read that because I've been in work all afternoon, but I suspect what's being referred to there is, almost like at the moment these judges are working for the Sheriff of Nottingham and putting Robin Hood in prison. And it's like saying, OK, if things get so bad that you've got fascism, you've got Nazism, who do you protect? Do you protect the people who are fighting against the system that says it is now the law that these people the Jews go to prison? Or do who's... So let's just, sorry, I'm getting confused, but the Nazis said they changed the laws, they put them in their favour. And you break the law, are you wrong? Or are you doing the right thing if you break a law that you do not think is the right law? And if these laws are protecting those who are just continuing to trash my children's future...
But do you not think people have the right...
I'm going to come up and I'm going to say, I'm not having that. I'm not just going to say, yeah.
But people have the right to be able to move around unimpeded by people whose whatever motivation is to block the M25.
But have you seen the disruption caused?
Sorry, your statements are trying to suggest that judges in this country are akin to Nazis. Why? Why invoke that?
I think that's going... When you say that, it's sort of saying just we've got to look at what the law's protecting. They're not.
Sorry, so your statement, I'm just asking you about your own organisation's words. These judges would be sending those who hid Anne Frank to the cattle trucks while hiding behind the rule of law. Why invoke Nazis?
They're saying they're Nazis. It's a metaphor, isn't it? It's saying you have to.
They are akin to Nazis, yes.
Whose law you're protecting, or who the law is protecting. I've been to visit my friends in prison. And you don't see the wealthy corporate bosses. You don't see the people who are putting sewage in our rivers in prison. You don't see the people who are making vast profits from destroying the environment in prison. You don't see those people in the post office scandal in prison. You see the ordinary people. And I go to prison and I visit friends and I see ordinary people...
Who broke the law.
You just don't see...
Who broke the law. They broke the law.
So have very many of these big corporates in terms of destroying our planet.
Absolutely, and there should be no hiding place for people.
Why aren't the proper criminals being put in prison?
There should be no hiding place for people who
are destroying all our futures and our present, destroying our crops,
including those people who break the law from your organisation. Finally, what punishment would be suitable to protect ordinary people going about their business from being blocked on the M25 all the time? What punishment should there be?
Our government equivalent is signature to the Aarhus Convention. And the Aarhus Convention says that everyone has the right to freedom of protest, okay, as long as it's non-violent civil disobedience. And it actually says that this, I can't find the wording, I've written it in my notes, but this includes, you do have, if you stop getting in the way of pedestrians or vehicles, that is not against the Aarhus Convention, and our government has signed up to that. You know,
they broke the law by conspiring to bring the M25 to a standstill.
Can we move on?
Well, no, because that's what happened, Jill. You're trying to deny the facts. I thought we were all about the truth.
Martin Luther King was arrested, over 40 times, right? I'm not saying we're him, but he was arrested over 40 times. So
saying you're Anne Frank.
You have to break the law to achieve something, because the law, as I've said, these laws were largely created by Policy Exchange, which is the largest think tank in Westminster. It's funded largely by the fossil fuel industry. So, we broke laws that were funded by the fossil fuel industry, and we've been subjected to sentences that were influenced by a lobbyist for the fossil fuel industry. Please just stop saying, yes, you broke the law. Yes, we knowingly broke the law, and we always accept the consequences. These people did these things expecting to be, some form of punishment. But even as the law itself has said, they were manifestly excessive. I fear that they will continue to be manifestly excessive because people don't want to hear the truth. They need to silence people who are telling the truth because they're more interested in wealth and power. And it's really sad, but true.
Whilst I'm interested in wealth and power, I am not trying to silence you, Jill, but I only have to go because of time reasons. Thank you very much indeed. Jill Tavner, Just Stop Oil spokesperson. The judge said the sentences were manifestly excessive and has reduced the length of some of them. I mean, she kicked out quite a lot of the appeals from Just Stop Oil protesters, but 6 Just Stop Oil activists have now had their sentences reduced, including the founder, Roger Hallam. Do you still think these sentences are too long for what they did, or is justice being rightly served? 03456